Hi, everyone. So every year in theory, the last 2 years have been this big asterisk on everything. The Action Housing Board and executive team give out the Award of Excellence. In June of 2021, after a year of eviction moratoriums around the state and nation and the growing concerns around an impending eviction crisis on the horizon, several members of the Allegheny County community, including myself, were invited to participate in the White House Summit on Eviction Prevention. For me, the biggest takeaway from this event was that Allegheny County was leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the nation in not just programming, but in even starting this conversation. That's all due to the proactive efforts of the Pittsburgh Foundation and their commitment working alongside the city and the county in nurturing this conversation and ensuring a true collaborative was working together to address it thoughtfully, equitably, and intentionally. Out of that working group convened by the Pittsburgh Foundation, innovative ideas and collaboratives have been developed, and the city, both through its Office of Management and Budget and the Urban Redevelopment Authority, as well as the county, primarily through its Department of Human Services, began funding these ideas, allowing them to come to fruition. As a result, the collaboration that exists in Allegheny County between government, foundations, the courts, community groups, tenant advocates, landlord advocates, and nonprofits is both unprecedented and the envy of urban counties around the country. There is still a ton of work to do in this space, as we all know, with evictions reaching pre-pandemic levels both here and around the country. But Allegheny County had a head start, and we have been able to prioritize innovation over relationship building and capacity because in many ways those two things were already in the works due to the efforts of these three organizations.
First of all, congratulations to the award winners, and I have the perspective of working in a lot of different activities in Pittsburgh, but I'm also involved in national networks, and sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. And the most frequent comment I get from my peers around the country is, how do you get everybody to work together? How do you build these collaboratives? And I got to tell you, it is something that is in our culture. It's precious, it's important, and it allows us as a community to take on incredible problems and solve those problems. And I don't know what the next set of problems is, but I know as a community, we together can make a difference. It is my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker today. And the Pittsburgh Foundation is special to me in a unique way. When I joined Action Housing in 1979, the very first foundation we approached for funding, John Zimmer and I, was the Pittsburgh Foundation. It was my first foundation presentation experience, and it was energizing, it was different, and it had a very positive impact on my career. So it was the Pittsburgh Foundation way back. Over the years, the Pittsburgh Foundation has been a leader in critical problem solving, has been a leader in supporting advocacy for more resources, and has really just been a terrific gift. It is my pleasure to introduce their executive CEO and president, Lisa Schroeder, to come up and make some remarks on the foundation and affordable housing. Lisa, would you join us? While she's finding her way through the Warren, she is the other great woman leader from the city of Baltimore. You are a Baltimorean, are you? There's another one. The second most important one is somebody by the name of Nancy D'Alessandro Pelosi. Lisa Schroeder.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Wow. What a beautiful room full of change makers. And what an honor and a privilege it is for me to represent the Pittsburgh Foundation at this important annual meeting. To be in the room with hundreds of you who have dedicated your careers to supporting and presenting the most basic underpinning of quality of life, health and happiness, safe, affordable, accessible housing. I want to start by recognizing that we have Democratic Senate Leader Jay Costa here with us today, and we have State Representative Emily Kincaid. I'm also, I also want to ask my team, they're sprinkled around, just to stand up for a second, because I always tell them that their expertise is one of the resources and the gifts that we give to the community. One of our heroes at the Pittsburgh Foundation is, of course, sociologist Matthew Desmond, author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City. Quote, "It's hard to argue," he writes, "that housing is not a fundamental human need. Decent, affordable housing should be a basic right for everybody. The reason is simple. Without stable shelter, everything else falls apart." That fundamental human need is the reason why so many of us have been dedicated year after year to making headway on this issue, because we know that life-changing difference that good quality, affordable housing makes for individuals, families, and communities. And my goodness, haven't we seen ever more starkly in the pandemic how quickly lives are upended in the wake of a housing crisis. The affordable housing gap strains the entire system of human services provision, and we don't have to imagine what our economy would look like if all residents had access to desirable and affordable housing. A National Low-Income Housing Coalition study estimates the growth in GDP between 1964 and 2009 would have been 13.5% higher if families had better access to affordable housing. This would have led to a $1.7 trillion increase in income. That's nearly $9,000 in additional annual wages per worker, with incalculable benefits in quality of life for families and exponential potential for wealth building across generations. You know the human costs behind the statistics better than I, but here are some numbers that have jolted many of us in local philanthropy. In 2019, across Allegheny County, there was a shortage of about 37,000 units that are both affordable and available to people living on extremely low incomes. The failure of the local housing market to meet this demand is creating a domino effect that makes housing unaffordable across all lower income levels. Rents are increasing at a faster pace than people can afford. The average waiting time to secure public housing or a housing voucher in the county is 3 years, and the number of landlords willing to participate is shrinking. And since the end of the county's COVID-19 emergency rental assistance on July 31st, the eviction rate has climbed back to nearly pre-pandemic levels. These numbers are intimidating and point out the magnitude of the problem, albeit far be it from me to tell you anything you haven't learned through your own practice. In fact, there are at least 50 organizations here today, which tells me that whatever progress we've made as a region, and to Larry's point, it is in trying to reach our goals has resulted from all of us being in it together. Action Housing has historically been indispensable, the conductor, unifying our efforts and pulling us all in the same direction. Your good friend and our Senior Program Officer for Economic and Community Development, Jane Downing, was just boasting about the multiple partnerships roles that you play based on a fluid understanding of what your hundreds of nonprofit partners need. Now helping to access residents, now nurturing pre-development ideas, now managing contracts, providing management services, and on and on. Will we ever even know how many seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, or homeless families are the beneficiaries? That said, we know that you cannot nor should you go it alone, that you need an array of support from foundations, government agencies, courts, corporations, human service managers, community leaders, and many others to further the cause of housing. Since this is an annual meeting, it's the perfect time to celebrate hard-won progress. So let's start with just 3 examples of how we as a community have seized opportunity and moved in partnership with exponential results. Thanks go to Action Housing staff, Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey and Allegheny County Chief Executive Rich Fitzgerald for partnering to steer American Rescue Plan funds to help prevent evictions last year. The money supported rental payments, resource navigation, mediation, and legal assistance with specific outreach to Black and brown communities whose residents fared worse during the pandemic than those in white communities, with the amazing results that $124 million was paid out in the program to protect 19,000 households from eviction proceedings by compensating 6,400 landlords. An additional $8 million was paid to cover the overdue utility bills. In another recent win, Action Housing, with local elected officials and state legislative leaders, steered $375 million in unspent American Rescue Plan funds into the new budget to cover vital housing programs, including $125 million for the whole home repair program, $100 million of housing option funds managed by the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Assistance Agency to assist developers and nonprofits with constructing, rehabilitating, or preserving affordable housing units, and a $150 million fund to support income housing initiatives facing hefty cost increases or loss in equity investments during the pandemic. Finally, an example of public-private innovation. When the Second Avenue Commons Homeless Shelter opens this fall with combined capital support from foundations, locally based corporations, and our public agencies, the 95-bed facility will be more than just a place for people who have nowhere else to go. It includes a medical and behavioral health clinic facility and programs to lessen the strain on other human services agencies. I've no doubt that I've missed some of your favorites, but the list of accomplishment makes the case that we've just begun to stretch our muscles and to demonstrate the power of the collective with the results to prove it. So how can we help as a community foundation? Well, first, we have an historic record of grant making, $4.5 million over the last 7 years to nonprofits undertaking housing work. We're proud of that, but we believe that it is our job to go beyond making grants. And for 78 years, we've believed that it is our responsibility to serve the most vulnerable. What's new is that the Pittsburgh Foundation has just passed a new strategic plan to harness the whole diversity of our resources to achieve a more equitable, just, and prosperous region in which everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Pivotal to that is that we make safe, decent, affordable housing the standard for our region. Let me be clear that we are not here to do anything that is redundant to the efforts that you have developed, but rather to help turn over rocks and respond to the needs that you, as the experts, discern, and then ask ourselves jointly, what haven't we yet done? Who might we be willing to invest? Who might be swayed by the stories and the data that point to a better future for our citizens? We are here to serve as a public policy and fundraising partner, a convener, a matchmaker, and an impact investor. Ask us. If we cannot help, we will connect you to anyone, anywhere who may be able to provide assistance. If you need neutral ground for convening, we are there. You are damn good and savvy about statewide advocacy for legislative change. But if you need us to activate our statewide network of nonprofits and community foundations who can speak to impacts firsthand to pressure and persuade legislators, we are here. A couple of examples hot off the press of what we've been able to accomplish together. Last fall, Action Housing asked for emergency help to pay for utility bills before winter through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. We dug into our emergency fund and granted $200,000 with which you paid bills for 9,467 households, totaling, and this is amazing, $8.225 million, months ahead of what would have been possible. What's more is that all but the ineligible household bills can be reimbursed, but with public funds. So now you have $175,000 from that grant to re-employ. Isn't that great? I also love the story of the campaign to raise the Fair Fund cap, the realty transfer tax that has supported development of affordable housing in all 13 counties. The proposal is in the budget. If you ask Phil Koch, our indefatigable Vice President of Policy and Community Impact, he's still hanging out the possibility that the legislature may increase that cap of the Fair Fund. Meanwhile, through that collective effort, $100 million of federal funds has been added to the Fair Funds from that advocacy. I say that exceeding the projected totals for that increase right up front is a major win. We will use all of our resources, human and financial, to realize the vision of a region in which each person has ample opportunity to not just survive, but to thrive in a happy, healthy, prosperous life. We need you to dream with us, to push forward a vision of this region as a national model of racial justice. Most glaring in the spotlight in a myriad ways are that racial injustice impedes access to resources for communities of color. Reacting to the backdrop of growing diversity and expanding prosperity, we feel a moral imperative to adopt a central commitment to achieving racial justice. If we can help put heads together and imagine forward towards solutions we have not yet dreamed of, well, that is what a community foundation is here for. We can become a model region for affordable housing if we remember that we are all in this together. After all, that has always been the Pittsburgh way. Yours is noble and humble work indeed. All laud and honor to you, underscored by our hope and confidence that the best is indeed yet to come. Thank you so much for having me.